Welcome back to the TDB2K channel. In this video, we will take a look at Triple H's greatest moments of his career. And trust me, there are plenty of them throughout this entire video. Now I went through Triple H's entire career and picked out what I believe to be his best work within the confines of professional wrestling. Some of these moments might hit you with a wave of nostalgia, and for more casual fans of the WWE, you will learn how Paul Levesque became the Game. Let's start where it all began. Triple H had a desire to become a professional wrestler from an early age, as he would watch wrestling with his father. His biggest inspiration growing up was Ric Flair, and he started bodybuilding at 14 years old so he can look like the wrestlers he would watch on TV. Triple H began his training to become a wrestler under Killer Kowalski and would later get signed to WCW under the name Terror Rising, but would change his name to Jean-Paul Levesque, working a new blue blood upper class gimmick that he would eventually carry over to the WWF. When he arrived to the WWF, he continued to use the same gimmick, but finally landed on the name Hunter Hearst Helmsley. After weeks of promos, Triple H would have his official WWF debut on April 30th, 1995 on an episode of Wrestling Challenge, defeating Buck Zumhofe. Triple H would get his first big match against The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 12, but ultimately would get squashed. Despite the setback, the WWF still had big plans for Triple H, but after an unscripted incident in Madison Square Garden, referred to as the Curtain Call, where real-life friends Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall embraced in the middle of the ring following a match, breaking character and essentially killing kayfabe. Triple H took the brunt of the punishment since Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, known as Diesel and Razor Ramon at the time, left WWF and headed over to its main competitor, WCW, and Shawn Michaels was the WWF's biggest star at the time, so only Triple H could get punished. Triple H would get booked to lose every single match and would become a jobber, but after the WWF felt that he served his punishment, he would get paired with Mr. Perfect and would go on to capture the Intercontinental Championship on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Triple H would eventually be matched up with a young Rocky Maivia at WWF Raw on February 13, 1997, where The Rock would capture his first title belt in the WWF, defeating Triple H. Despite dropping the belt to The Rock, the following episode of Raw would see Triple H's real-life girlfriend, Chyna, make her first appearance in the WWF, leading her to becoming Triple H's bodyguard. Triple H would pick up his first WrestleMania win at WrestleMania 13 and would win the King of the Ring tournament shortly after. He would go on to drop his blue-blooded character in exchange for a role as a degenerate, becoming the exact opposite of what his original character represented. Triple H and Shawn Michaels, along with Chyna, Rick Rude, and later on Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, joined up to create D-Generation X. During this time, the name Hunter Hearst Helmsley went away, and he would officially be known as Triple H. He would eventually move on from D-Generation X and would take over the WWE, and for the next 20 years, Triple H would go on to become one of the greatest professional wrestlers in WWE history, becoming a 14-time world champion and the current chief content officer and head of creative for the WWE. Now let's take a look at some of the moments where it was time to play the game. Triple H began feuding with Owen Hart over the European Championship, leading to a match at WrestleMania 14. Per the stipulation, Chyna was handcuffed to Sergeant Slaughter, but she was still able to interfere and help give Triple H the victory. Triple H and Owen Hart faced off once again at the Unforgiven In Your House pay-per-view, where the Game successfully retained his championship. Triple H and Owen Hart's rivalry wasn't over, as Owen Hart joined up with the Nation of Domination. This resulted in a battle between DX and the Nation of Domination. After feuds with Owen Hart and D'Lo Brown, the next person Triple H would feud with was the leader of the Nation of Domination, The Rock. Around the same time as The Rock became the new leader of the Nation of Domination, Triple H became the new leader of D-Generation X, and both men would compete against each other to establish their faction as number one. Their first feud would come to an end in a ladder match at the 1997 SummerSlam pay-per-view in front of a sellout crowd in Madison Square Garden to determine the new Intercontinental Champion. Both men would put on one of the best matches of that year. It was one of the most violent matches back then. Both men decided to use the ladder as a weapon to inflict damage onto each other. Triple H was ultimately booked to go over and win the Intercontinental belt since The Rock was being pushed towards the main event picture. The opening video focuses on Cactus Jack and Triple H. They compare each other's legacies. Cactus Jack is a scarred man who fought in barbed wire. Triple H is the WWF Champion, and he crippled men his entire career. As for Triple H, he calls himself the Game, but Cactus Jack played the game before and won. Both men are sick and sadistic. However, Cactus Jack calls himself the sixth man in the business. There will be no laughter, regret, or remorse. Going into the match, they brawl in and out of the ring. They use the steel steps, announce tables, and even the ring bell to inflict damage onto each other. After a brief scuffle into the crowd, they end up at the entrance set. Cactus Jack suplexes Triple H onto some pallets. A chunk of wood stabs Triple H in the calf. Next, they return to the ring, and Cactus Jack grabs a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire and bloodies Triple H. Cactus Jack pulls out a bag of thumbtacks and lays them all over the mat and tries to knock down Triple H, but he fails. Triple H then backdrops Cactus Jack onto the thumbtacks and nails the pedigree. However, it isn't enough to put Cactus Jack away. Triple H argues with the referee before giving Cactus Jack a second pedigree into the thumbtacks. This earns him the pinfall. It's the perfect blend of storytelling and brutality. The kick out after the pedigree legitimately surprised Triple H. It was the original finish, but Cactus Jack called an audible. He wanted the match to end with him getting pedigreed into the thumbtacks, and it was the better finish in my opinion. The Rock entered Judgment Day 2000 as the defending WWF Champion. The Brahma Bull ended Triple H's title reign 1 month earlier at Backlash. For this grudge match, the Game had issued a challenge to The Rock to a 16-minute Iron Man match. Another addition to this matchup was the insertion of Triple H's former DX stablemate, Shawn Michaels, as a special guest referee. The Rock earned the first fall with a rock bottom, but the Game would ultimately take control of the contest, leading by 2 clear falls at 3-1, then 5-3. In the final moments, the People's Champion managed to wrestle his way back into the matchup, and with just a few minutes left on the clock, leveled the bout 5-5 following a People's Elbow. That led to Triple H's corporate and DX allies interfering to beat The Rock's ass. The brawl caused special guest referee Shawn Michaels to be knocked off the apron. Then everyone turns to the ramp as The Undertaker's long-awaited WWF return after a 7-month hiatus. The Dead Man debuted his American Badass gimmick and rode down to the ring on a motorcycle and picked off the heels one by one. However, in the final twist, Shawn Michaels came around at precisely the moment the Phenom nailed the Game with a tombstone as the timer ran out. Shawn Michaels disqualified The Rock and awarded the final fall to Triple H, making the score 6-5, resulting in Triple H leaving Judgment Day as the new champion. Despite the botched finish, this is the definitive Rock vs Triple H match, and also an underrated classic. Triple H has suspicions that Kurt Angle is trying to steal Stephanie McMahon from him. Meanwhile, Stephanie McMahon catches Triple H in what appears to be compromising situations with Trish Stratus. To make matters worse, Kurt Angle and Triple H both earned a WWF title shot after a double pin on Jericho. All this drama reached the point where Vince McMahon had to step in. He warned Triple H and Kurt Angle to never make his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, cry again. Also, Kurt Angle felt unwanted because Triple H wouldn't trust him. Stephanie McMahon did her best to balance her marriage and her friendship with Kurt, but this increased tensions between Triple H and Kurt Angle. Stephanie McMahon got hurt in the mixed tag match against The Rock and Lita. Instead of helping Triple H fight The Rock, Kurt Angle went to find Stephanie McMahon, and when Kurt Angle found her, he apologized and then kissed her. This had Triple H livid. This resulted in a triple threat match for the WWF title at the 2000 SummerSlam pay-per-view between The Rock, Triple H, and Kurt Angle in an exciting match. But ultimately, The Rock would retain his WWF title, and the feud between Triple H and Kurt Angle was just starting to heat up. Kurt Angle used the situation with Stephanie to taunt and goad Triple H. Kurt tried to convince Stephanie McMahon that Triple H was abusive. He said it wasn't an accident when Triple H hit her. Since things were out of control, Mick Foley booked this match to settle things. Plus, he made himself the special guest referee. This would be settled at 2000's Unforgiven pay-per-view. In the match, Kurt Angle targets the ribs, but this leads to brawling outside. Back in the ring, they fight back and forth. Both men complain to Foley about his counts, but Kurt and Foley shove each other. This allows Triple H to score a neckbreaker and a high knee. When Kurt Angle recovers, he sends Triple H over the ropes for more fighting outside. This time, they use a chair and clear the announce tables. Triple H looks for a pedigree, but Kurt Angle's counters and drops Triple H on the Spanish announce table with a belly-to-belly suplex. Kurt Angle then misses a moonsault, and Triple H lands a one-arm pedigree. Instead of ending the match right there, he calls Stephanie into the ring and tells her to make her choice. It's him or Kurt. She takes a moment to think about it, but then Stephanie McMahon gives Kurt Angle a low blow. With Kurt Angle stunned, Triple H hits him with the final pedigree for the pinfall victory. Stone Cold Steve Austin returned to action after being hit by a car. Infamously, it was Rikishi who drove that car, but it was later revealed that Triple H had paid him to do it. Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't gonna let this slide, and the Texas Rattlesnake lifted Triple H's car with a forklift and dropped it with the game inside. Triple H somehow survived and returned a few weeks later. Vince McMahon tried to calm things between Triple H and Austin after the 2001 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. He said everything would end at the 2001 No Way Out pay-per-view. But the match contract banned any physical altercations until that pay-per-view. If they fought, Vince McMahon would suspend Triple H for 6 months and take away Stone Cold Steve Austin's title shot at WrestleMania 17. However, Triple H attacked Austin before signing the contract, knowing that Austin couldn't retaliate. Then they antagonized each other on a weekly basis. Austin gave Stephanie McMahon a stunner, but Triple H countered by giving JR the pedigree. To settle the score, they battled in a 3 Stages of Hell match at the 2001 No Way Out pay-per-view, with Triple H winning the match 2-1 falls in a classic match from the peak of the Attitude Era. After settling things with Stone Cold, Triple H couldn't believe he wasn't in the main event of WrestleMania 17. He said that he beat everyone there is to beat in the WWF. However, these comments drew The Undertaker's attention. Taker said that Triple H never defeated him. Later, Triple H jumped Undertaker backstage. He threatened to cripple Taker, so Taker terrorized Triple H and Stephanie McMahon into their limo the next week. As a result, Stephanie McMahon took out a restraining order against The Undertaker. Taker had Kane threaten to throw Stephanie McMahon off a balcony until William Regal gave him a match with Triple H at WrestleMania 17. Triple H battled The Undertaker at WrestleMania 17 in a match that saw The Undertaker defeating Triple H for the first time at WrestleMania, extending his streak to 9-0. At the same event, Stone Cold Steve Austin would join up with Vince McMahon in a shocking heel turn. This caused him and Triple H to become tag team partners on the Raw after WrestleMania, known as the Two-Man Power Trip. The duo set out to hold every single championship in the WWF. Triple H picked up the Intercontinental title, and he and Austin soon also won the tag team championships. However, while the Two-Man Power Trip were defending all the titles, Triple H would tear his quad, putting an abrupt ending to the most dominant duo in WWF history. This was a serious injury, and Triple H would not be seen for the rest of the year. After 8 months of recovering, the Game was ready to make a comeback. He returned on the first Raw of 2002 to one of the biggest pops in WWE history, and then won that year's Royal Rumble match to main event WrestleMania 18. Everything was going great, but his on-screen marriage with Stephanie McMahon was falling apart. She faked a pregnancy, and then when Triple H found out, he dumped his wife during their wedding vows. This caused Stephanie McMahon to align herself with Triple H's WrestleMania opponent, the undisputed WWE Champion, Chris Jericho. At the event, Triple H got his sweet revenge and won his 5th WWE Championship. Unfortunately, like his other title reigns, it was short-lived. At the next pay-per-view, Backlash, Triple H lost the title to Hulk Hogan, who had recently returned. Around that same time, another major star made his return as well, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Eric Bischoff wanted Shawn Michaels to be Triple H's manager, but HBK found this insulting and threatened to quit the WWE. Hunter convinced him to stay with the idea of a DX reunion. However, Triple H attacked Shawn Michaels and gave him a pedigree instead. He said he did it because Shawn Michaels' ego got in the way. Later, someone jumped Shawn Michaels in the parking lot and left him in a pool of his own blood. Triple H claimed he was innocent and questioned others, but Shawn Michaels had security footage of Triple H committing the heinous act. Shawn Michaels challenged Triple H, so Triple H vowed to cripple Shawn if he went through with it. He said he was never Shawn Michaels' friend and accused Shawn of using Triple H to stay at the top, while Triple H only used Shawn Michaels to get to the top. The former DX teammates faced off at the 2002 SummerSlam pay-per-view in a unsanctioned street fight. While Shawn Michaels picked up the victory, he had to be stretchered out after the Game attacked him with a sledgehammer, walking away from the match covered in blood with a sick, sadistic smile on his face. Triple H's reign of terror hit a slight bump when he lost the World Heavyweight title to Shawn Michaels in the first ever Elimination Chamber match in the WWE at the 2002 Survivor Series pay-per-view. HBK's title run was short-lived though, as the Cerebral Assassin regained the gold at Armageddon a month later. To continue his reign over Raw, Triple H enlisted some help to form the most dominant stable of that era, Evolution, featuring Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista. Chris Benoit won the 2004 Royal Rumble and chose to challenge Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. The match ended up becoming a triple threat match when Shawn Michaels was added in. All three men put on a very memorable match at WrestleMania 20 that saw Chris Benoit force Triple H to tap out. Batista won the 2005 Royal Rumble and was deciding which champion he would face at WrestleMania 21. Batista overheard Ric Flair and Triple H scheming against him, causing the Animal to choose the Game as his WrestleMania opponent. Not only would Triple H lose his World Heavyweight Championship to Batista, but he would also lose the 2 rematches as well. After that, Triple H disappeared for a few months to heal from a neck injury. The King of Kings won a tournament that meant he would challenge the WWE Champion, John Cena, at WrestleMania 22. However, for a third year in a row, Triple H failed to win on the grandest stage of them all. Despite this loss, Triple H had his greatest entrance at this Mania, in my opinion. After being a heel for the last 4 years, Triple H decided to change things up in 2006, when he reunited with Shawn Michaels and brought back D-Generation X. They feuded with Vince and Shane McMahon, as well as the Spirit Squad, which was filled with DX's trademark humor. Triple H and Shawn Michaels would need to get serious though, when they crossed paths with Randy Orton and the Rated R superstar Edge. They had some good matches, but unfortunately the rivalry came to an abrupt stop when Triple H tore his quad again during a match, just like he did in 2001. After several months away from the WWE, Triple H finally made his return at the 2007 SummerSlam pay-per-view, where he defeated his former rival Booker T and received a standing ovation from the crowd that was pleased to see Triple H back in action. Triple H would be absent from the WWE for the majority of 2010 to focus on becoming involved in the behind the scenes of the company. It wasn't until early 2011 that we would see Triple H again. The Game returned and wanted to avenge Shawn Michaels, who was forced to retire after losing to The Undertaker at last year's WrestleMania. The dead man accepted Triple H's challenge, but Triple H wasn't able to defeat the streak at WrestleMania 27, but he delivered so much punishment to The Undertaker that for the first time, the Phenom had to be stretchered out of a match at WrestleMania. The following WrestleMania, it was The Undertaker who wanted to give Triple H another shot at ending the streak, because of how the visual of him at the end of the previous year's WrestleMania didn't sit well with him. Triple H declined the offer, and as he was walking away from The Undertaker mentioned that Triple H was never as good as his best friend Shawn Michaels. This made Triple H stop. He slowly turned around and returned to the ring to change his mind and accept The Undertaker's challenge at WrestleMania 28. Shawn Michaels was introduced as the special guest referee, and Triple H faced The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania 28 for one last chance to defeat the streak. Even with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee and the closest near fall in WWE history, Triple H and Shawn Michaels couldn't end the streak. And after a brutal match, all three men walked up the ramp, and after 4 years of storytelling at the grandest stage of them all, they all embraced to signify the end of an era. Not long after that, Triple H would begin his next storyline with Brock Lesnar. The rivalry started when Brock Lesnar broke Triple H's arm after Triple H refused to give in to Lesnar's contract demands. Once he was fully healed, Triple H and Brock Lesnar fought at that year's SummerSlam, where Brock Lesnar would win that encounter. But Triple H wasn't done. Triple H and Brock Lesnar had a rematch at WrestleMania 29, where if Triple H lost, his career would be over. But Triple H walked away as the winner, and his career continued. A few months later, Triple H would begin a new faction called The Authority. It started when Triple H was the special guest referee for a match between Daniel Bryan and the WWE Champion John Cena. Daniel Bryan won, but his victory was cut short when Triple H hit him with a pedigree. This allowed Randy Orton to cash in his Money in the Bank contract and become the new WWE Champion. In addition to the Cerebral Assassin and the Viper, the group also included Stephanie McMahon and Kane. Daniel Bryan proved to be too resilient and defeated Triple H at WrestleMania 30. The game's last big rivalry was with his old friend and rival, The Animal, Batista. Now a major movie star, The Animal decided to return for his final match and had his sights set on facing Triple H again. Triple H had beaten all the legendary superstars in 3 different decades, but one man he could never defeat was Batista. Batista made a statement by attacking Ric Flair before the Nature Boy's birthday celebration and demanded the game to give him what he wants, a match at WrestleMania 35. The game had no choice but to accept the challenge and give the Animal what he wanted, resulting in a no-holds-barred match at WrestleMania 35. The match was nearly 25 minutes long and featured some brutal moments. Thanks to help from Ric Flair, Triple H was able to defeat Batista at the end of the night. The match was really good, especially considering that Batista hadn't been in the ring for years. A really fun no-holds-barred match between two 50-year-olds at the end of their career, and a great final nod to their interlinked careers. Not long after defeating one former Evolution teammate, Triple H would face another, the Viper, Randy Orton. For a final opponent, it's hard to have a better choice for Triple H than Randy Orton. Out of everyone from the entire WWE roster, Randy Orton was the wrestler who had the most history with the game, dating back to over 15 years earlier with the formation of Evolution. The two battled in many big matches and defeated each other for world titles. While Triple H has made appearances on TV since this match, it is unlikely we'll see him wrestle again. He underwent serious heart surgery in September 2021, so it seems like Randy Orton will end up being the final opponent for Triple H. He officially retired from in-ring competition at WrestleMania 38, and has been the man behind the WWE's renaissance in the last 2 years. But that will do it for Triple H's greatest moments. Of course, there are a dozen moments that could have been included, so if you have any of Triple H's greatest moments that you would include, leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and take care.